G'day, Professor Joseph Drew here. I'm here to talk to you this time about the vexed problem of what to do to estimate the cost to bring assets to a satisfactory standard. Now, New South Wales local governments must do this. Other local governments around the country ought to be doing it. So please stay tuned, even if you're not from New South Wales. So the biggest problem with this concept is the fact that we're working in a definitional vacuum. The definition tells you nothing. Satisfactory is the standard fulfilling all demands and requirements affording satisfaction. Well, that gets you absolutely nowhere if you use the word you're trying to define in your definition. So this is a real problem. So it's something that councils need to get on top of, because satisfaction, people's concepts change from person to person, and they also change over time. So they're the two biggest things confronting people. So my idea of what a satisfactory road is, living in Moonbi, will be very different to your idea of what satisfactory is, living in Perth or Adelaide or Melbourne. Also, my idea of what a satisfactory road was 10 years ago is completely different to what my idea of what a satisfactory road is today. So we've got these two moving parts. We've got different people involved as new councillors come in, as new GMs come in, and as new chief financial officers come in. That's going to be a problem. Every time we've got a new face, we've got a new conception of what satisfactory is. But we've also got changes in perceptions over time. As the community gets richer, as a person goes through different experiences, as we lower our expectations over time. So both of those moving parts mean that if we're not very, very careful in what we're doing, we'll end up trying to equate different things which aren't in any way equal at all. So there is a solution to it, and the solution actually came to me. I was giving a keynote lecture for an Asian Development Bank function in Indonesia, and there was a speaker after me at this excellent presentation on looking at asset quality and having evidence of work being done. They obviously had a corruption problem. They wanted to make sure when they paid to get roads resealed, they were actually being resealed. And I thought to myself, you know what, that's more or less what we need for this satisfactory standard business. So what you need to do is take lots of photos of different roads. Say roads is your focus at the moment. Take lots and lots of photos, not just one or two or three like I've got up here, maybe at least 10, maybe more. And then you need to get in a group of people, the group of people who are your stakeholder for whatever decision you're making. So maybe it's a councillor group, maybe it's a community group, maybe it's a staff group. It doesn't really matter at this stage. We need different conceptions for different stakeholders, and then we need to put those conceptions together. And you are guided by these photos, and you actually point at, this is what I consider satisfactory. And we get feedback. We see what the typical response is. What is the thing that most people consider satisfactory? And what are the reasons for it? And then we keep that photograph. And underneath it, we put a very clear and precise definition of the things that contribute to that road surface being satisfactory or not satisfactory. You know, the width of the cracks, how many cracks there are, size of pebbles, size of potholes, whatever you need to do, but very, very precise. Now, what this means is every year when we're looking at satisfactory standard, we can go back to this sheet of paper and go, there's a picture of what we think a satisfactory road is. The road I'm looking at doesn't look like that, therefore it's not satisfactory. And if there's any doubt at all, we can read the definition. I'm not sure whether it is or isn't. Hold up, it says here, cracks at no greater intervals than this, no greater width than this. Okay, I'll measure it. It doesn't measure up, it's not satisfactory. See how precise definitions supported by photographic evidence can help us to make consistent judgments about what is and what is not satisfactory, not just between people, but over time, because every year we can bring up this sheet of paper and have another look at it. It's really, really important. And the reason why it is important is we need to understand what resident preferences are. We also need to know what they're willing to pay for this standard that they say they want. They need to be prepared to pay what it costs to keep those things at that standard, and you certainly need to impart that information. But we also need to know what is the standard that they've got in mind. This is a key issue for financial sustainability, because your bank account can look really good, but if you're running down the assets by not doing maintenance, in order to keep the money in the bank, you've actually incurred what's referred to as an implicit liability. It's still a cost. The future generation's going to have to pay to fix that road because it's not up to scratch. Doesn't matter how much money you've got in the bank. If you've got millions and millions of dollars of assets that need to be fixed, you may not be financially sustainable at all. So council needs to be consistent in these understandings, particularly important with comparisons over time. A lot of councils do compare that metric. It's one of the metrics you've got to put in your financial statements. If you're not from New South Wales, it's one of the metrics I'd encourage you to use, but it's absolutely useless unless you're working from a firm definition, a comprehensive definition of what satisfactory is, not just for roads, but for every type of assets, footpaths, buildings, whatever. And you've got photographic evidence to support it. So we keep these judgments the same. Because if you're comparing a ratio to a ratio 5 years ago, but the person had a completely different conception of what satisfactory was, maybe it's the same person, they've changed their perceptions over time, or it's a different person with an entirely different conception, it's an absolutely useless exercise. It achieves zero, zip, zilch. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, do me a favor. The whole point of this YouTube site is to help communities to get better information in the hands of local government practitioners and councillors so that they can make good decisions, which helps us all. Unfortunately, there's a lot of so-called experts out there giving really rubbish advice and charging an arm and a leg for it. I'm here to combat it. Give me a hand. Flick this around to someone else you know in a local government. Use it on your website and your council. Use it in your staff training. I don't care how you use my material. It's there to help, and the more you can get out of it, the better it is for everyone. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.